for performers and cosplayers. Today we're visiting her studio to see just how she designs, engineers, and constructs these magnificent mechanical constructions that are meant to be worn.
Hi, my name is Alexis Noriega, and I am the owner and lead designer at The Crooked Feather. Welcome to the chaos that is the shop. I make costume wings and costumes for cosplayers, theater, film, pretty much anybody who will pay me to make them. And the main thing that I do is I make articulating wings like this one. And these open and close at the push of a small little key fob. And that's what I'm going to be working on today. But we also make static wings that don't move, that are a little more Victoria's Secret and pretty. We make fairy wings, we make helmets, we make, I don't know, armor and foam work, and pretty much anything that I feel like making here. So today I'm going to be working on a little tiny cute set of articulating wings, feather wings. So I'm going to go through the process of making the really big fake feathers. No, they're not from a real bird. We're going to go through how to size them, string them, how to do your pattern, how to cut your framework, and then how to rig everything up so that they actually move and look like you are an angel. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So thanks for joining me. Okay, so for the first part, we're going to start making the framework, and a good framework starts with the design. So what I want to do is I want to make today an 8-foot wingspan set of wings. So I've already worked out all of the measurements, but if you need to work out measurements for yourself, here's how I started. Is you start by drawing out what you want it to look like, and then underneath the framework, what you want to do is, underneath the wing pattern, you kind of want to look at where the bird's joints normally would have been. So a bird's wing is pretty much just like an arm, just like the bicep is a little shorter and the forearm is a little longer and the hand is longer. And so basically what I did is I took those proportions and I made a pivoting frame system using those proportions, drilled a bunch of holes in it, and played around with where those pivot points were until I got it to open at the angle I like and close at the angle I liked. So now, once I did that, I wrote everything down, and now I'm going to cut it out of my aluminum framework, and then we're going to put it together, and that'll be the base that we put all of our pretty feathers on. So now that I have all the pieces chopped up, now I need to put in the pivot points, and I have them taped together in twos, both for the chopping and for the drilling, so that both sides open and close at exactly the same, in exactly the same way. So they'll open to the same angle and close to the same angle. Okay, so after deburring everything and bolting it together, this is what the framework looks like. So we have some holes for our feathers, and we have our bolt holes that help this whole system pivot. And as you can see, it kind of mimics the motion of an arm, or in this case, a wing. And once we bolt it to our back brace, hopefully it'll look like we have a very natural, organic wing coming off of our back. So first step in making them look not like a big old piece of metal is making these gigantic human-sized feathers. And I make these because birds don't come that big. I make these out of broadcloth and glue and wire. So we just take a big old glop, blip, right in the center-ish, kind of, almost, close enough. And done. So now we just have to wait 4 hours or so for this to dry, and we have to make about 50 more of them. Yay! Okay, so while the feathers are drying, I got about 4 to 6 hours to kill, so I'm gonna go ahead and work on the electronics, which is what actually makes these things move. So what I have are linear actuators, which are basically a motor with a gearbox that transfers this rotational motion into linear motion. And so it moves along a straight line, and what we can use that to do is push these open and pull them closed. And so what we have to do is put them across 2 of the bars, and what so like the distance between these 2 points increases and decreases. And you can do it across any 2 really, so long as that distance changes and you can exploit that change. You can use a linear actuator to move these bad boys. So it can go across here, it can go across these 2, it can go from this one to this one. And so there's lots of options for using linear actuators in like pivoting systems. So that's why I like to use them. After I wire up those, I have to wire up this control board. It's just a 2-channel remote control switch. And basically it has these little connectors on there. You can just connect the wires straight in and then solder it straight to this board, but because we have all these moving parts, I actually like to solder it straight to the board. It's a little more robust, and things can kind of wiggle out of place slowly over time if you're not careful, and that seems to happen more often if I leave these connectors in. So we're gonna go ahead and take those off. And then once we have everything wired together, we can go ahead and put these electronics on the wings, hook them up to some power, and give them a good test. Okay, so the feathers have been drying for a few hours now and should be dry and ready to shape and size to the framework, and this is the part where it starts to all come together. So we have these little guys, and the way I just freehand these, because I do this all the time. But basically what I'm trying to do is get all that like gross edges off. It's almost impossible to get the glue all the way to the edge without making a gigantic mess. So what I do is I just go ahead and make them a little bigger than they need to be, and then I cut off all the gunk on the sides. And I leave about inch or 2 at the tip of the feather so that the wire's not all the way at the end, so that if somebody bumps into these, they're hopefully getting the hint before they stab themselves. What I do is I try and mimic the shape of a real bird's wing most of the time. But sometimes if you want like something more angelic, maybe you'll keep all of your feathers round. Or if you want, you're more of a rough and tumble character, or a fallen angel, maybe you'll kind of give yourself some pointy feathers all the way around. Or you can mimic real birds, which is what I normally try and do, which is you have your flight feathers at the top, which kind of have this swoop to them. You'll see that on this set. All the ones at the base here are gonna be rounded, and as you go towards the top, they're gonna get a little bit more pointed, and then they're gonna get a little bit more, they're gonna have the very, very top ones, the flight feathers, usually have this little bit of a swoop to them, a little kind of a notch cut at the top corner. So and shaping the feathers, it really just depends on what kind of look you're going for, what kind of character you're going for, what these are being used for. If it's a cosplay of a character, match the character's design. If it's, you know, a beauty pageant, I have a lot of beauty pageant people come to me and ask for wings, and they usually want a more soft appearance. So. So I've got a couple of the feathers cut out and shaped roughly the way I want them. So I know where the edge of the feather is. So now I'm going to go ahead and size them to my framework. So we can take out our pattern. And you can start any side you want. But what I do is you want to go using your frame, because you want it to be specific to the bolt holes that you have for your feathers. Because if you just size it to this, you know, if you've got it slightly different, it's a problem. But what I do is I just hit roughly where I want it to be, and then figure out where the bolt needs to go on it. Then I use this to go ahead and create a little loop where my bolt is going to go. And the way we do that is we just lay this on there and then bend this in a circle, keeping the whole thing as flat as we can. And then we clip off the excess, and we'll have a little loop. So now we're going to do that about 46 more times. Okay, so I finished stringing everything, and so the next step, we are going to put on these real feathers. These are turkey quills, and the reason we do this is two reasons. One, we have this ugly string line that we want to cover, and we don't want people to see behind the magic of the wings. So this helps kind of mask that line and keep it looking realistic, but it also acts as the second layer of a bird feather. I believe they're called coverts, the second layer of feathers. And as the wing progresses, the feathers get smaller as it gets towards the body, and they get smaller as they get towards the top of the wing. And so I try and mimic that with my wings, making sure that this second layer of feathers they're still large, but they're kind of an intermediate step. So turkey quills serve that function really, really well because they're nice and broad. You can actually shape the tips if you want to shape them to match, and then they're nice and stiff. So as the wing moves, they'll stay looking pretty nice throughout the day, even though you're moving them around. Hot glue works actually really, really well. Getting these off can be pretty difficult. Over time, they might work themselves off a little bit, but usually it's pretty good. So, and it's fast. So the feathers are now done. Next step is we're going to put the electronics on so that these bad boys actually open and close. Okay. And then we're going to tighten down. Okay, everything's together, everything's plugged in, so let's give her first try. Want to just make sure, even though we clipped everything together in pairs, I want to make sure that she opens and closes the same amount. Looks good, open and closed. Oh, am I running out of battery? Yeah. So, looks good. So now we can go on to the next steps of getting the sleeves together and put on, and then putting the final pack together so that these can go out. So I'm gonna go ahead and start working on the sleeves that are gonna cover up that framework, because last time I checked, Bird didn't have metal bones exposed at the top. So we have to cover it with something. So I cover it with a mixture of felt and spandex. The reason they're in this pattern of, you know, spandex and felt is because I tried a bunch of different things, and after many trial and error periods, I came up with this. So now we need to cover it in feathers. Because we have to have this dip at the bottom to maintain like proper proportion and making sure it actually looks like a real wing at the end, I only sew on the fuzzies, these little goose shoulder feathers, only get sewn to about here. After that, we're gonna glue on more of those quills so everything kind of ties together and looks like it's all one piece instead of, you know, all of these little pieces, which is what they actually are. So I'm going to add on a bunch more of these fuzzy dudes to the wing. Quills off and make a mess. It's the most fun part of this job. Okay, so we finally have pretty much everything together. We have our feathers, our main feathers on the framework. We have the real feathers glued onto them. We have our electronics mounted. We have everything on our back brace so that it can be worn just like a backpack. And we have one of our sleeves done, so now it's time to put these things together and test and see that everything's looking the way it's supposed to. So these backpack straps are nice and cushy because most of the time a lot of the weight feels like it's on your shoulders, but there's also this belt down here that helps keep the back brace tight against your lower back. It's got this lower back support so that you can use your core to hold these up instead. All right, so let's give it a try. Make sure everything looks good. Everything's still covered. Yeah, looks good. So let's go give her a try. All right, we got them together, we got them on. Feeling nice and light. The padded straps feel good. So let's give her a whirl. Yeah. How do I look? Pretty good, right? These are an 8-foot wingspan. It's a really nice, cute little size, especially on anyone bigger than me. But it's pretty good for smaller adults or large children. And they're nice and light, they feel good. The lower back support helps keep this off of my shoulder pretty well. So yeah, and these are like super fun to wear at cons. Everybody's always super impressed when for no apparent reason they just open, because you can hide this remote all kinds of places. So yeah, in the shop we made a framework, we hooked everything together, we got some electronics on there, made some nice big feathers, put some real feathers on there to give it this nice realistic look. So, you know, now we can turn into an angel, and that's always super fun. Or, you know, a fallen angel if you want. If you guys want to check out more of my work and see how to build more of these kinds of things, my stuff is on thecrookedfeather.com. You can find me on Patreon, Facebook, and on Instagram, all under The Crooked Feather. And yeah, hopefully I'll get to see you there or at a convention sometime. Thanks for coming by.